Welcome to Kindred, hosted by me, Kate, and my sister, Jen. In this podcast, we explore our human relationship to the natural world. In connecting to this planet, we also connect to understanding, compassion, and empathy. How can we see ourselves as not separate or above animals in nature, but a critical and integrated part of an active ecosystem? Through conversations with animal advocates, scientists, conservationists, and many others, we look to inspire a new awareness of how and why we connect to animals in nature in order to repair and restore our relationship to the natural world. Hello and welcome to Kindred. And I'll announce our last episode for this season.
Crazy.
I know. It was such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful season. But yes, we will be back in late summer, early fall, and we'll, of course, give you a heads up when we'll be dropping episodes again. In the meantime, I think you and I would suggest to go back and listen to episodes you might have missed, because we're accumulating quite an impressive archive. The guest being the impressive part, of course. Although you and I might make quite an impression, not really sure. Not really sure about that.
That's true. That's true.
Yes. And speaking of impressions, if you would, our lovely, kind listeners, please leave your impressions of our small but mighty podcast in the form of a review. You can do that via Apple Podcasts, as you already know. And when you go to listen to one of our episodes, you just scroll on down and you'll see a header that says ratings and reviews, and you can tap all those cute little stars, light them up, all 5 stars. That's always great. It's very satisfying to do all 5, which I always do for my favorite podcasts. And then below, there's a tab that you can select that says write a review. And please do tell us what your favorite episode is. And that can be a review. All words are welcome, mostly all words.
Yeah, it really doesn't take very long. Like, I never used to do it until, like us, I hear podcast hosts say how much of a difference it makes. And so I did make an effort to do it for the podcast that I listen to, and it really does make a difference. So yeah, please feel free to do that.
Yeah, it helps Apple promote us too, which is really amazing.
Sure. So. Absolutely.
Okay, now Jennifer, if I said it once, I've said it 52 times. Our episode today is so compelling and absolutely fascinating. So here's a hint for our subject animal today, or maybe it's a riddle, or maybe a joke. So you ready?
Yes.
What do you get if you put a tuxedo and a dolphin together?
You get an orca.
Or a killer whale.
Or a killer whale.
Oh my gosh, you got it right away. That's very clever.
I don't know what that is. Maybe a riddle. It's an easy riddle, because a lot of times I can't get riddles and I don't actually get them.
Riddles are terrible. No one should ever have to solve them.
So if that's
the
riddle,
worst things.
Maybe the first one I've ever gotten.
Only bad jokes allowed here at Kindred Podcast, and I'm here for the bad jokes. Absolutely.
Totally.
And for the record, I'm putting a trademark on that. That is mine. Kindred owns that joke. So if you ever use it, you have to send us 25 cents.
Royalties? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So yes. Today we are talking about the incredible and dynamic predator, the killer whale, or orca, if you prefer. And our guest is a longtime marine biologist and author, Hanne Strager. Hanne specializes in marine wildlife and specifically killer whales, and has recently published her new book titled The Killer Whale Journals, Our Love and Fear of Orcas. It's an incredible book. We highly recommend it. We will be putting it on our book club page on our website, so please check it out there. Again, such a beautiful history, and just talking about in depth the experience of killer whales in context to their human experience as well. And we wanted to speak with Hanne because we are keenly interested in the relationship humans have to predators, and why killer whales have long been persecuted and misunderstood and even demonized by humans. So, like many predators, whether that be on land or sea, as we know here, but we think they're super dynamic and highly intelligent and gorgeous. and captivating animals. And Hanne tells us why that all is. So thank you so much to Hanne for joining us today. What incredible conversation. Can't wait to share it. So
Yeah.
let's head to Denmark to meet Hanne Strager and into the chilly waters that is the home of these incredible predators, killer whales. We'll see you at the takeaway. Hanne, a very warm welcome to Kindred, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, if you would, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Well, I'm a biologist, a marine biologist, and I'm from Denmark. But I work mainly in Norway, and I have specialized in killer whales, marine mammals, and killer whales especially, quite a long time ago. And 30 years ago, I was part of a small group that established whale watching in Europe, in northern Norway. It was the first whale watching operation at that time in Europe. And of course, it has sprouted in many places since. And then I made a detour. I was working there for maybe 10 years on and off in different projects. And then I made a detour back to Denmark. I was heading the Natural History Museum's exhibition department in Denmark for 16 years, I think 17 years.
Wow.
And that job I quit in 2015 to go back and do whale stuff again. Turned out I missed it too much.
Yes.
So now I'm working in Norway again, and now I'm actually in a small group establishing a whale museum, which is called The Whale. And if you haven't heard about it or seen it, you should check it out because the architecture is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations on all of that. And we will put up a link in the show notes. But also, I just wanted to start off with many congratulations on your book titled The Killer Whale Journals, Our Love and Fear of Orcas. So I came across your book, excuse me, specifically via the wildlife photographer Paul Nicklin's Instagram account. I was immediately compelled to read it because of the title alone. I thought, okay, right, this is here. I can get answers to some of the long-standing questions about killer whales. And it's also a topic, especially here at the Kindred podcast, like that echoes throughout the experiences of other apex predators, not only in the ocean, but on land. So thank you so much for putting this out there.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Beautiful introduction.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful book. And it's a subject near and dear to our hearts here. So, but Hanne, before we dig into all things killer whales, can we just start with the physical characteristics or morphology of these whales? And are they actually whales, or is this just what we call them? Because, like, from my perspective, they just look like big, round, wed, but very well-fed black and white dolphins.
And which is exactly what they are.
Okay.
They are dolphins. They belong in the dolphin family. But depending on how rigorous you are with your taxonomy, you would say that dolphins are actually part of the wider whale family.
Oh, interesting.
Because whales in Latin is called cetaceans. And so dolphins is a cetacean and a blue whale is a cetacean. So they are very closely related. But yeah. So they are dolphins. They are the biggest dolphins that exist. And in some languages, they are called killer whales, which they don't stop being dolphins just because they're called killer whales.
Yeah, that's right. So how do they get the name killer whale to begin with?
Why they got the name killer whale?
Yeah.
Well, they got it probably. I mean, they have many names in different languages.
Okay, true. Right, fair.
So in my language, Danish and Norwegian, they are called spækhugger, which means blubber snatcher.
I like that. Blubber snatcher. Sounds like a body snatcher, a blubber snatcher. Some people might like a blubber snatcher.
Sorry, I was
That's
not
some of
at
my
all
blubber.
expecting
Yeah.
for you to say that. I am dying. Okay,
That's
carry on.
really good.
That is the name in my language and in Norwegian, and that's of course given to them by whalers who have seen them attack and eat large whales, where they are primarily interested in the fat in the blubber.
Yeah. Okay.
So I also think that they got the name killer whales probably from whalers who have seen this behavior when they
got it.
And so I know there's always a discussion about killer whales. Should they be orcas? Should they be killer whales? Should they be blubber snatchers?
Right.
And so orca is their Latin name. Killer whale is the name they have. It's not just something we call them because we don't like them.
I was wondering that. I was wondering if it was just a nickname.
No, it's not. That is their name. It's when you look into the IUCN database of different species, the name is killer whale.
Interesting.
And I wouldn't say that it's a completely unfair name either, because they are predators.
Yeah, right, fair.
They really do kill, whether you like it or not. They kill
exactly.
They kill gray whales. They kill fish.
Wow.
So they are huge predators.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and at first I was like, oh, I'm going to only call them orcas. And then like reading your book, you're like, well, it just kind of means killer whale anyway. So I'm just like, let's just call them killer whales, because why not? It's really not a problem.
Right.
But how many species of killer whale are there to date?
Oh, this is a good question, because very recently, just a month ago or a month and a half ago, a scientific paper came out where a lot of scientists have gone together. Some of those who have, done long-term studies in killer whales, who looked into their genetics, and they are actually proposing that we name 2 new species of killer whales.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal. And the 2 species that they are proposing is the ones that are best known in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, in the Washington State waters and in the British Columbia waters, where we have what has formerly been called resident killer whales, which is not a word that's used so much anymore, but that was because they were thought of they belonged more in the area.
Okay.
They're fish eaters. They're salmon eaters. And then there are what is now called Biggs killer whales, which are marine mammal eating killer whales. And they're very, very different animals. They look the same. I mean, they're black and white, huge killer whales, all of them. But there are small differences. And if you look into the genetics, the differences are not small anymore. And they're consistent. It's not something that, you look in one whale and then you see this pattern, and then you look at another one in the same group and you see a different pattern. No, they are consistent differences, and they're big enough to argue that they should be 2 different species.
That's incredible. Now, so go ahead, Jen.
The behavior
are they behavior? I was going to say, is it behavior is different or genetics is different?
It's all of it. It's all of it. It's vocalization, it's hunting behavior, it's diet, it's travel behavior, it's group size, and it's also morphology. It's the size of the fins, the angle of the fins, the pattern of the white eye patch. Slight differences there. So if that is eventually agreed on by taxonomists, which I think it will be, then we'll have 3 species of killer whales. We'll have these 2 species in the Pacific Northwest, and all the rest of the killer whales in the world are then
a different species.
They're the good old killer whales. In the old name, the Orcinus orca, whereas the 2 new species will have new names.
So interesting.
Wow, that is incredible.
Now, do you think that's just they have evolved that way because of where they live, or
just like the distance apart?
This might actually be something that's typical of killer whales. The only killer whales that's been studied enough that you can go in and say, we now know enough about their behavior, their morphology, their genetics, everything, to be sure that they're actually different species. They never mix, even if they're in the same area. They don't
So
swim together,
interesting.
they never breed. I think that if we could do
That's
that
fascinating.
with other killer whales in the world, we'll
Right.
probably come up with some more species.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, live a very,
Exciting.
very, very, very long time,
So
everyone.
for instance, in Antarctica, there are at least 4 or 5 recognized very, very different populations of killer whales. They look very different. They behave very different, but there haven't been enough studies yet
Studied. Yeah.
to
Right.
say they are different enough that they are also species. But the people who are studying them think, yeah, they probably are different species as well.
Right. But just hasn't been scientifically proven. Well, that is really
It's gonna take a little
fascinating.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Can I ask
right.
you one more question about that before, if you're
Yeah,
ready
yeah,
to
yeah.
move on, Kate? Okay, I'm just wondering, is this the same with other species of whales? Like do blue whales have this, and
And dolphins
No.
and things? Yeah.
the big giant
No.
ones? What are they called? I'm blanking right now. The ones
Humpback
we saw,
whales.
humpbacks. Yeah, is
Yeah.
that
No,
different?
probably not.
Okay.
But I'm not an expert in those types
Yeah.
of whales, so I don't know. But I
You can't
don't
say for
think
sure.
so.
Yeah.
And one of the things that makes this particular about killer whales is, first of all, they are spread all over the world, but you have local populations, which
Mhm.
means
Right.
that you have populations which are somewhat separate from other populations. That's one thing that you need to have, to either that, or you have to have a behavior that is specific enough that these two populations don't mix.
Yeah.
And it looks as if the behavior that is separating killer whales is the feeding behavior. So that, for instance, in Norway, killer whales, you have a large group of the killer whales in Norway, and there's a lot of killer whales in Norway, seem to be specialists in herring. They have specialized in wrapping up a school of herring. It's a group effort. There's a lot of collaboration within the group to herd the herring into a tight ball that they can fish on. It's a very specialized behavior.
Right.
Then you have the killer whales, which I guess we'll be talking about later in Gibraltar, which are right now causing a lot of problems from the sailing boats in the area.
Oh, right. Yeah, we've been hearing about that.
Yeah, they're specialists in tuna fish.
Interesting.
Interesting.
And then there are also shark-eating killer whales who dive very deep, catch shark somewhere down in the depths,
Wow.
feed on them.
That's
So
incredible.
it looks as if their very specific diet and feeding behavior could be part of what drives them apart.
Genetically, then. Yeah,
exactly.
that's incredible. So, okay, well, let's, and I think this is sort of, we're already talking about this now because I want to dig into behavior. But one of the reasons I think we're so drawn to killer whales is what sets them apart from other predators, and not only in the ocean, but also from like terrestrial apex predators. And in general terms, what I've read about now from your book, some of what makes them exceptional is this combination of very specific behavior you're talking about in what I see as a high intelligence. So from your perspective, let's talk about the bigger sort of zoom out a bit in their behavior. Could you give us some insight into their family structure, predation methods? You've already talked about communication, and just what makes this species so fascinating and distinct.
Well, first of all, they are one of the biggest predators on Earth. That alone, of course, makes them distinct.
Yeah.
Argue that a sperm whale is also a predator, but they don't attack warm-blooded animals. So
right, it's different.
It is a little bit different. So they are very large predators. That's always fascinating.
Yes.
They are, some designer could not have done it better.
Agreed.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
If you ever see them, you'll also notice that they're very active. They're very lively at the surface. So that means they're very interesting to see. And part of why they're interesting to see is that there's always so much going on between them. They're highly social. They're interacting, they're playing, they are traveling as a group. There's so much going on. And that makes them really interesting to look at. I think probably one of the best examples of, just how smart they are is if you watch killer whales in Antarctica that are feeding on a seal.
Oh yeah.
They'll first of all, they'll find a seal. Perhaps there's a seal. It's lying, innocently in the middle of a big ice floe, very safely. There's a long distance from where the seal is lying to the rim of the ice floe. The killer whales will never be able to grab it. And you can see it's been filmed. Killer whales sticking up their head. They spot the seal. It's almost as if they're saying, okay, so it's too far in. We can't get it. We have to move on to the next thing we can do. And then they swim away from the ice floe. They get together and then they swim at high speed towards the ice floe. And just before they get there, they dive under. They create this huge wave that cracks up the ice floe. And now suddenly the seal is on a much smaller ice floe, bobbing up and down in the water. Still, the killer whales can't get it. So they get together once again, swim away so that they can get speed. They come again, 4 or 5, shoulder by shoulder. They create a huge wave that washes the seal off the ice floe.
Wow. So they create a battering ram basically with their bodies.
And waves.
That's a very specialized and very coordinated behavior.
Yeah.
When you see this, you realize that they're pretty smart.
Well, you also realize they had to talk to each other about the core. They went from having a problem to solving the problem. It's that in-between part. You're like, what happens there?
Well, and that's the thing that sounds like they're highly intelligent.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know what? The one thing that when you say that, Hanne, reminds me of is we were in South Carolina once and we saw dolphins doing the same kind of thing. They call it stranding, where they go in the banks of these like estuaries and they go and they create a big wave and then all these fish go up onto the bank and then they quick eat them. But they do the exact same thing. They coordinate and they do it together and they make waves where there are no waves. And same kind of thing. It's like they are so smart. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. And so then let's talk about this is part of the whole thing is they have dialects and distinct repertories of calls. Like they talk to each other. Yeah.
They communicate.
Okay. Yeah. Fair.
I mean, I'm sitting right now and the door is open and I can hear blackbirds singing outside. They're also communicating. I don't know if they're talking to each other, but they're definitely communicating. And killer whales have many different sounds that they can make. But the thing is, when you start studying them, it's kind of a fixed repertoire they have. So maybe they have between 10 and 20 call types that they use. And I don't know when they use one call type and not another, because when you record them, it's kind of recording into a dark room. You
can't tell what they're doing. Yeah, right.
No, you can't tell. You can't even say who is saying what. You're basically sitting in a boat and they're somewhere below you. I have no idea what's going on. But you record them and they have these different call types. And what's interesting is that you can say, so group A, they have this repertoire, 15 different calls, and they use them all the time. And group B, they have maybe 14 different calls, and half of them are the same as group A, but the rest is only theirs.
Wow.
So that's what we call group-specific repertoires.
Yeah, astonishing.
This means that I, as somebody who's listening to it, can tell them apart just by listening to the group.
Right.
This is group B because I can hear that call and that call.
Right.
I know group A doesn't have it and group C doesn't have it. Probably it also means that the killer whales can tell the groups
Of
apart.
course, I would imagine. Yeah,
Yeah, those
that's
guys those
amazing.
guys are from Brooklyn and they're from down south.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. That's right.
this
They
is like
got
that's a Philly accent and that's a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
It's amazing. So
Yeah, it
then,
is.
just as like, let's talk about their sort of family, their group, their pod structure. Talk to us about that. Like, who's in charge?
I don't know. I know that if you read books about killer whales or hear talks, some will say that it's the old females that are in charge because the oldest individuals in the groups are almost always an old female because they live long. They live
Interesting.
longer than the males, which is common in many mammals.
Yeah.
So her offspring will also be in the group. The oldest female will be a granny. I mean, she'll have her daughters is there.
Oh
The
man.
daughters will be there. So perhaps there are 3 or 4 of her own daughters. They have offspring, and they'll both be males and females in a group because when the males grow up, they don't leave the group. They stay in there.
Interesting.
At least for those killer whales that have been studied in the fish
Right.
eating, been studied the most.
Okay.
There's a lot we don't know. I don't know if this is true for Norwegian killer whales because we don't know them as well. But some of the groups that's been studied, this is what's going on. So they're very, very stable groups. And basically it means it's a lifelong membership in a group. You stay in a group you were born into.
Okay.
Amazing.
So how many is a typical pod?
Well, between 8 and 20, perhaps.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Interesting.
But the marine mammal eating killer whales, it's a slightly different stories, smaller group size and some dispersal away from the maternal group. So it's a slightly different story. But that's what you would expect. They are not even the same species.
Right.
So
that makes sense now.
Yeah, you will, of course, see different behaviors.
That's amazing. So the one thing I wanted you to touch on is, this is where I think you were saying before, like they're predators, they're fascinating, they're beautiful, but something about them too, we as humans, the more you learn about them and the more I've read about them, and especially now through your book, there's so much I can identify and sort of relate to with them. And one thing that I read was that the killer whales sort of displayed behavior that we might call expressing grief. And that because they are so tightly knit, again, in the groups that have been studied, of course, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've seen it myself. I've seen a mother killer whale carry a dead calf.
Wow.
And my thought is that it's exactly the same as when we grieve. I mean, I'm sure. And I, for that matter, I think that's true for a lot of mammals. If they lose a baby, the emotions involved in it are probably very similar to what we experience.
Yeah. And this
I don't see why they shouldn't be, actually, because the emotions that we have are there because it makes evolutionary sense. We wouldn't take care of our own children if we didn't love them. Emotions are there to secure strong bonds in social animals. So if that's true for us, it's probably true for other social animals.
Absolutely. And I think was it you who wrote that that this one killer whale stayed with her dead baby for hours and days even. This is
for 17 days.
17 days. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, if that's not sort of a process of grief that we can relate to, I mean, it's just incredible to me.
The story of this killer whale went all around the world. And I think the reason that it resonated so deeply with everybody who saw it is that we immediately understand that this is not very different from ourselves.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. And I think it's so important to talk about these stories. And I love when these stories kind of go viral in some ways because it really can sort of, with some of these apex predators. And, some of what we're talking about is really reminding me of wolves. And, it's these strong familiar bonds and the structure and the way they communicate. And researchers often talk about the killer whales having different cultures within these groups and pods, right? I mean, it's just astounding. And there's so much that we can relate to.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's true every time we study something really in depth, we understand more and
Absolutely.
we relate better. I think that has happened with chimpanzees, with gorillas, with elephants, and of course with also with animals that are closer to us, dogs, or cats. There's
absolutely.
a lot of animals where those things that we recognize is also present in them.
Absolutely. So Hanne, I'd like to switch gears here and talk about killer whales in context to the major challenges that they're facing today. So if you would, talk to us about what is most, I guess, threatening to their species, what's impacting their health, and what environmental issues are challenging the future of killer whales.
Yeah, well, this is a question I'll have to split my answer in several parts because it's a complicated thing. So the thing that's threatening killer whales depends on where you are and what kind of killer whale you is.
Right.
If you're a killer whale in the coastal waters of Washington State and British Columbia, the thing that's threatening you is lack of food. Those killer whales that depend on salmon, or their population is going down.
Yeah.
And there's very strong indications that it's because that there's too little salmon. And there are many reasons that there's too little salmon. There are dams, there's pollution, there's all kinds of things, but there's probably also way too much fishing.
Right. Yes.
So that's definitely a threat. And it's not just, something far out in the horizon. It's right here. The population is dwindling. So it's critical.
Yes.
If you're a population of killer whales that live in coastal areas where there's a lot of people around, you will also have a lot of environmental your substances in your blubber, which is toxins or organopollutants.
Right.
All these places where you have killer whales in populated areas, they have a very high content of foreign substances in their blubber.
Wow.
And that's considered a very serious threat.
And where are we finding this? Is this all over the world, or are these certain pockets?
This is in the population in Spain and Portugal have very high levels. The population around British Isles have very high levels. The population of Washington State and British Columbia have very high levels. And then there are like the Norwegian killer whales, and those in Antarctica are doing much better.
Okay. So, and I guess it depends on what studies have been done too. So you just may not know that answer.
Yeah, we don't know it for all of them, but we know a lot about it for those populations because there's been samples taken, small blubber samples. You shoot a small arrow from a bow and you get a tiny skin sample and you can analyze it, and therefore quite a lot is known.
Right. Wow. And so this is, so chemicals like in plastics, I guess this is just where this is all coming through.
All kind of organic pollutants.
Right. Like pesticides and things.
Yeah, also that.
Okay, interesting. And then what about warming oceans and the climate change? Are they moving around differently because of this?
Yeah, yes, they are. And one place where this is very visible is in Greenland that I visited when I was writing this book. So one of the chapters is actually from Greenland. And in Eastern Greenland, there I spoke to local Inuits in Eastern Greenland.
Right.
And this guy who took me out in his small boat, and we went out between the icebergs, and it was magnificent. It was fantastic. He said they never saw killer whales when he was a kid, but now they come every summer.
Right.
And they come because the warm water is moving further north, and with that, a lot of fish, for instance, mackerel is moving further north, and many killer whales like mackerel, so they're going further north, and not just killer whales, also pilot whales and white-sided and white-beaked dolphins are now seen Greenlandic waters where they never were before.
Right, and that's going to create more competition, right?
Yeah, it's in Greenland. It's a problem because the Inuits are not very keen on killer whales because they are hunting seals, and they think that if the killer whales are there, they are scaring away the seals and also the owls that they hunt, and therefore they kill the killer whales.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's the human wildlife sort of conflict that we talk with many wildlife biologists about, and it's a lot of these predators are facing similar sort of experiences. And so now I'd like to switch gears to that topic. So kind of listening to you talk about just even a few of the challenges killer whales have and are experiencing today, this is where I inevitably come to my next focus, and that is looking at our long-standing relationship to killer whales and ultimately many apex predators, and really any animal we humans feel in competition with, whether that be real or perceived. If we look at history of how human societies and cultures see killer whales, and much of this I've gotten from your book, we seem to see them in two ways. They hold great meaning with a feeling of a respectful and reciprocal relationship, or they are seen as competition for a resource like fish. And ultimately, that seems to lead to a justification for culling that species due to the animal taking away our desired resource. So, Hanne, with your years of observation and experience, I'm really interested in your perspective of this. You call it love-fear, I call it love-hate relationship between, humans that we have with predators. And of course, specifically killer whales is what we're talking about. But why is this?
Well, I think you almost gave us the answer, because the thing is that when a predator comes into our realm, we start to fear them, and we are also fearful that they will take away something that we depend on, whether we depend on it to survive or we depend on it to create an income. And you see the same thing on land with wolves and coyotes.
Right.
And you see it in the water with seals, which are also common because they eat fish, and with killer whales. And I think that the really nice thing with killer whales is that it has been possible to change this perception. So you don't have to go much further back than 50, 60 years in the US, and killer whales were also shot at and tried to be eradicated in the US. Nobody would dream about doing that anymore. When I started working in Norway, it was just a few years earlier that they had been killing or culling killer whales, because they were always around when the fishermen were fishing herring. The herring fishery collapsed. So who was to blame for that? Had to be the killer whales.
Right,
so
of course.
They actually killed thousands of killer whales.
Heartbreaking.
It was really quite bad.
Yes. Yes.
And in Norway, that has also changed in even less time. So I'm not saying that you can't find a fisherman in Norway who will say they shouldn't be there, but they're certainly a lot rarer. And I think most fishermen that I've spoken to the last 10 years think that there's plenty of fish for both him and the killer whales. And one reason that he thinks this is that the fishery is much better managed now, so there actually is more fish. So there's not so big a conflict. They're not fighting over the last few fish that's left in the ocean.
Right.
The fishery has been controlled so well that the fish stocks has grown, and therefore the competition is less. And with an increased understanding of, oh God, people are coming up here from Spain and Italy and England to watch our killer whales. Are they really something special?
Yeah.
With that comes suddenly a pride. Like, we have something here that everybody from the whole world thinks is amazing. So it has changed. There's now a local pride, and also knowledge has been crucial in creating this change. The more you know about the animal, the more you understand that this is a social species. They live in family groups.
Right.
The more knowledge there is, the more you get to know them, the less likely you are to say they should just be taken out.
Right.
I feel like that's true about anything, right? The more you know and understand, the more you care. We've talked about this with other people. Like, you can't care about something that you don't understand. So
I think that is
fear. Yeah, or fear. It just always seems to come to this point where, well, there's a conflict here, and it feels like the killer whales always lose when there's a conflict, when humans, I don't know, the whales have been swimming and fishing in the ocean long before we got in the ocean and started fishing. There's this lack of accountability when it doesn't suit us. And I think this echoes through the experience of the predator over and over and over again in context 100%. To the human, right? I mean, like,
right, exactly. And when you started talking, Hanne, and you said when they come into our realm, and I just I did a quotation marks in my little seat here, because it's not our realm. It's they were here first, and actually we came into their realm, I would say.
Well, but and there's times like times where it's worked really wonderfully, and Hanne, you talk about this in your book, where this, like, Jen, you were talking about it before, like what the dolphins were doing, like the orcas do this, and then they catch the fish, and then the orcas eat theirs, and everyone's really happy for like 10 years, and then something happens, and humans lose this sort of perspective again. It's always the predator's fault, and I find this, especially in our country right now, but obviously all over the world, this human predator conflict. I can't wait till it's like, you know what? We're the problem here. There aren't any fish because we've been overfishing. There aren't any. This is the problem. Like, let's all step back in a moment of clarity and be like, we're the problem. I just find this fascinating, Hanne, and your book really addressed this really beautifully, I thought.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's a complicated problem, because
it is.
In Iceland in the 50s, there, the fishermen had a huge problem with the killer whales. And it wasn't just because the killer whales were eating the fish that the fishermen wanted. It was also because they had learned that they could destroy the net and get a fish very, very easily.
Right.
And those fishermen in the 50s in Iceland, they were dirt poor.
They
really, really, it was a question of catching.
Survival.
Catching fish so that they could put, buy shoes for their children. And this was really poor fishermen. So I can understand that they were very, very frustrated.
Yeah,
I do too.
So it's always, I think it's always also a question about being respectful of,
I was going to say that too,
cultures and people's tradition, and saying, well, it's a complicated world, and in my opinion, what really works is knowledge, more than saying a little bit general. We should all be here, because I think knowledge works faster, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're
I
right.
agree.
And I think that with so many of these conflicts, people have to get smarter about being creative about the solutions, because just mowing them all down is not the solution. Yeah.
Right. And mowing and
yeah,
just saying people are all wrong, right, Jen? Like, it's the same.
right.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
just not, everyone's not wrong. And you can't just go shoot all the killer whales.
Right.
No,
So
and also, for instance, in Norway now you have a tourism industry which depends on the whales. So
Mhm.
so suddenly you have somebody who's generating an income
Right. From the
doing,
whales. Yeah.
uh, in the natural environment,
Yeah.
and talking
yeah.
about and educating people about it. So if you can little by little change those things, then I think attitudes will also change, and that we have seen it
Mhm.
change.
Right.
Yeah.
It just does, I have to say, like, it's always like, well, so the orcas, like the killer whales are good for me now because I can make a living showing people about them. And I have this pride and this connection, and that's beautiful. And I think that's the more, again, knowledge, understanding, making these connections to these animals. And it is always still, to me, so human centric. It's like, well,
Yeah,
and
but
that's,
it's not everybody is like me or you, just crazy about nature and thinks it's
right. True.
Right.
wonderful. And for me, I really want to walk in the woods, walk on the beach, be in a boat.
Yeah.
I just want to be surrounded by nature, but not everybody is like that.
Yeah.
That's true. And that's fair. And that is fair, to your point. Like,
Totally fair,
it's true.
totally fair.
Yeah.
But I
So
also think, like so many other things we've learned, that you can't just take predators out or the whole structure falls apart too. So
Right.
we do, and it comes back to what you said. We have to educate people
Yeah.
that you don't have to be wild about nature, but you have to respect it and you have to give it its due. Like
At least
but you don't,
understand the balance.
if you don't understand it, you won't
Yeah, no, you're right. It's true.
even consider
It's
it.
true. Well, and this is our last question that we ask everybody. I mean, and we're talking about it now, but like, why is this an important conversation, right? How, through your book and this conversation, are we changing the narrative of our understanding, and maybe even a longstanding new relationship to killer whales?
well, for me, it's easy. We're doing it because the only thing that can save the planet is our love for everything alive.
Mhm.
And for me, it was a lot of coincidences that led it to be killer whales. So I become an advocate of killer whales. It could have been so many other things, but it ended up
Right.
being killer whales. And I think it is just a richer world to live in for all of us if they are around. And it gives us insights, it gives us joy, it gives us majestic, incredible experiences, whether we see it with our own eyes or we see it in television or we read about it, or we need those experiences about nature to care.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel, like you just get, this is where this is like takes it into the heart space, and it's an emotional experience to hear about the beautiful connection, the understanding you have to killer whales. And I think this is why I also appreciate the compulsion, maybe, and the time you took to write this book and the journals. And I think it's so true, just the care, the beauty, the deeper connection we can have to ourselves and to the world. And we really do need to have this, especially now, because things are in a bit of a tricky spot. So I would say read Hanne's book. called The Killer Whale Journals, Our Love and Fear of Orcas. And I think by the end, you will appreciate why they're killers, and you will also appreciate why we love them and why they are such spectacular beings on this planet, and just the beauty. I want to feel one. I feel like if I eat or eat, it's going to be like this squishy, like I want to feel an orca. Like I just like they look so beautiful. Are they like silky smooth, or are they like squeegees? I mean,
I don't know. I've never touched them.
Okay, fair.
Mhm.
Well, then hopefully you get to touch one that's living and happy before I do. But thank you, Hanne, so much for joining us. We will post links about your book. I got this through Amazon, so you can buy this book wherever you buy books. Is that correct? Do you have a special place that you prefer people to get your book?
No, you buy it wherever you buy books. And if you read it, you're very welcome to rate it, whether you like it or not. Rate it or write a review. It really matters to me to hear what people think.
Absolutely. No, we can totally relate to that. So please, yes, read the book, write a review. We are going to put it on our book club on our website as well. Especially these last couple chapters. Woo, there are some stories in there. Girl, you need a tissue at least. I mean, it really takes it to some places we didn't have a chance to get to today, but some incredible stories of orcas in captivity, a whole other world of subject that I couldn't quite get to because I just didn't want to cry halfway through this whole episode. So Hanne, again, thank you so much for joining us. What an incredible honor to have you. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been wonderful.
So appreciate just you and your amazing, the amazing being that you are. So thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Takeaway. Oh boy, we have to have like a recap, let's have another check-in with Hanne. She's just so amazing, so smart, so empathetic, like so, I don't know. She's just, this, I don't know. She was amazing.
I loved talking to her. And I loved even just like, this might sound weird, sorry Hanne if this freaks you out, but just her physical presence was so like, I just loved her open smile and her face. She just obviously loves what she does. And
it's her energy.
She was so animated about talking about it in a way that was just so engaging. And she was lovely. I could have talked to her for hours.
Oh, for sure. No, she is just, it was just really a really special conversation. And we so appreciate the time. So just a couple points I wanted to talk about a little bit. The one, what I was really fascinated with is when she talked about how they've most likely identified now 3 species of killer whales. And that really struck me, just because you think a killer whale is a killer whale is a killer whale. And then the idea that, you know, these animals present so dramatically in our cultures and our societies, like around the world, and yet we know so little about them. So we don't even know how many species of killer whale there are, you know, because they only can, and this sort of leads me, but that really did hit me, just like, oh my gosh, like, what don't we know?
Right.
That was interesting.
And the juxtaposition of what we don't know, the more information we get, the more we realize we don't know, kind of thing. Like, because they can study their DNA now, it's like, so we have more information on the one hand, and yet we don't know. There's so much. She's like, we just don't know if that's it. Yeah. Right.
And like she was saying, like, and I know everyone heard this, but it's just really hit me. They act different. They communicate differently. All the things, they eat differently. It's just like that. I just assumed like they're all the same. They kind of don't. And she's like, well, if you really look at them, they don't even look the same. And then just, I just loved when she talked about why they're so dynamic and fascinating to watch. And she's like, again, it's part of like, so you're out on a boat and suddenly there they all are, and they're communicating and they're organizing and they're coordinating and they're spy hopping, and they're the story of the poor seal. I can't watch those videos, by the way. It's just too, she's like, so much. They're killer whales. They're highly organized. And just like you get this 30-minute, if that, sort of view of these animals, and you're like, oh my gosh, you were just so like wrapped in this drama immediately, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then you can put your thing down, your microphone down in the water and hear some of what's going on. But you were saying like, but you can't see them anymore.
Right, exactly. It's just the mystery that still surrounds them. Is part of it too. It's like we only get to see them if they want us to. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's just fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, they are incredible. And then the one thing I really loved that she said was, she's like, here's the deal. The more you research something and the more you spend time with something and more you study something and you are collecting data, she's like, the more we see how we are alike them. And that's with every species that scientists and researchers are, dedicating their lives to. Like, you really do come to see how similar we are. And I do think there are mammals that we can relate to more.
Right.
And as much as I can't swim around like an orca whale and be like them or do their calls. I mean, I could try. I could later if you want me to do my orca calls. But I think we are so drawn to them, and so we love them, and we fear them because, like you're saying, the more we know, the more we realize, wait, we don't know. Are these like, it's like when we talk about like wolves and ravens, and you're like, okay, these guys are scary smart. Yeah. Like that's, like what is actually happening. And this is just one of those really, they're just so compelling, and what an incredible species. And one that I've always been fascinated by, and I just felt like Hanne took us, we were on the boat with her in moments and really got sort of a peek behind the curtain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yet she's like, well, I've only had a peek behind the curtain as well.
Right.
And think of what she knows compared to us. And she feels like there's so much more to know.
Yeah, indeed.
So thanks so much to Hanne for speaking with us today. What an absolute joy. And I feel like I have a totally new perspective on these whales now, that are dolphins, that are whales. And, just even more amazing than we thought. So if you love this conversation too, please consider sharing the episode, and please read Hanne's book, The Killer Whale Journals, sold wherever you buy books, and leave her a review. She requested that. So
yes, she did.
We are also going to do that. And then, those reviews mean a lot to all of us. And if you want to support our production, head to our website, kindredpodcast.co, and you can buy us a figurative cup of coffee. And you need one after this chilly, icy seafaring journey we just took with Hanne. And you can do that via the app Buy Me a Coffee for $5 or more if you want. But it's just like a one-time donation that we very much appreciate. And every cup goes a long way to keeping our small independent podcast alive and thriving. So thank you to everyone who is supporting us, has bought us coffees. Totally appreciate it every single day.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to leave you guys with a couple of quotes that I'm going to read from Hanne's book. On page 17, this really struck me in her prologue. She writes, "Killer whales are unconcerned with our attitudes. They don't need our love or our hatred. How we understand and interact with a big predator like the killer whale is instead a reflection of ourselves and how we want to live with the complexity of other animals around us."
Nice.
And I thought, wow, that was so true, and just echoes through the animal kingdom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And then I'm going to leave you with this, and then we will go. She writes on page 228, she writes, "Perhaps I was again guided by the philosophy of my childhood heroine, Pippi Longstocking. Quote, if you are very strong, you must also be very kind." She probably didn't have the environment in mind when she made that determination, but I have chosen to interpret this as a reminder that when it comes to nature, we are the strong ones. It is not the fish or the birds, not the trees or the animals. It is not even the killer whales, but us. We are the ones in power, and it is up to us to be kind to make a better world for all of us living creatures who share this planet together.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Really beautiful. All right, guys, thanks again for joining us. Lots of love. Kindred is hosted by me and my sister Jen, produced by Kat Gaddy and myself, sound production and editing by Dan Cooper, original music by Ellie Grace, and our Kindred artwork was created by Lindsay Coffin. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and feel free to contact us through our website at kindredpodcast.co, where you can also find details about Kindred Plus, our subscription service, as well as links to our social media accounts and show notes.